Warning, the following episode contains tapered pins, which has been known to cause irritation, mind-numbing, and in rare cases, lock destruction due to rage. Picker discretion is advised. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode. I know it's been a hot minute, but I've been very busy, but I'm very excited to share with you today my second red belt lock for my red belt. Today, we are going to be picking the Izis. It's a French tubular lock. You can see here's the keyway, and it's rear tensioning with this cam. So this cam reaches in the back, and the key is spring loaded. So you push the key in, and then now you can turn. And this is the bitting on the key. You can see these little protrusions here. If I push on the key, I can go ahead and rotate this, and it'll click. That's how the key operates. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the vise and get this open. But one thing to note is this does take custom tools to pick. So I have this bent binder clip that's going to reach in the back and tension. And then to push the pins, I took the other half of the binder clip and I fashioned this little probing device to push the taper pins. Now these are hourglass pins, and they're severely tapered. So this lock is not difficult to pick in the aspect of the actual picking portion. The lock is difficult because you literally get zero to no feedback on if you're actually doing anything correctly. Kind of just all of a sudden after 5 minutes it just opens. So be advised, this is not a viewer friendly pick. It is going to be very boring because there's not going to be a lot of action, but we will be able to get it open. Now, because it takes quite a fair amount of patience to do so, we are going to finish out the Spicy Belt series by picking it on this Reaper sauce. This is 900,000 Scoville. So we're going to take a spoonful of this and pick it just like we did with the 700. I guess the only other thing to note is that this lock has only been picked by 4 different people. I will be the 4th person to pick it, but only 2 people, including myself, will be the ones that gut it. Feral Shooter picked and gutted, and I will be the 2nd person to pick and gut. But what will make our video unique is we are going to look at the pins using our microscope. But because this is a belt ranking video, we're not going to be able to cut once we start picking. So we'll get everything set up and get the video started. Alrighty, so we have the lock in the vise. You can see that the key does work. And before we start picking, we're going to go ahead and open up our sauce and take a spoonful. If we can get this cover off. There we go, it's coming off. There we go. Now that is, ooh, Jesus, that is some strong smelling sauce. Let me get my knife because this cover's not coming off. There we go. Okay. Probably should have taken the cover off first, but I wanted to show that it is legit, not been used before. Oh, okay. They're definitely not doing as much as I did with the 700, because that was a pain. But we are going to be world's first on this lock as well. And we are going to zoom in and take this sauce. This is one it tastes better than the other one. Spice is hitting directly. We're in tension with this bar and use this probe to start pushing the pins in. All right, I didn't like that. There we go. That's better. That's better. Okay, now we're moving. You can very easily overset these pins on the binding ones. This is a slow burn saw. It's not immediate death, but hopefully you guys can see this. Let me try to move that angle. So right now everything's springy. At the beginning I had 2 binders, which was these two bound first, and that was because they were in the hourglass originally, and you push out of the hourglass into the taper, and then after those 2 bound, this one here bound, and then it went springy, so you got out of the hourglass. So what I'm doing right now is I'm infinitesimally backing these pins further and further to the shear line out of that taper. Eventually, from having picked this before, this pin right here will be the next one to bind hard. That will tell me if I'm making any progress, but it does take quite a fair amount of time. This lock, like I said, is not difficult, but you're literally, not being jokingly, going to be doing this for about 8 minutes. And you'll think, am I even making any progress? Like, maybe I overset a pin. And that happened to me for quite some time, and I talked with Farrell, and I was like, hey, like, I've been poking at these for 2 minutes straight and nothing. He's like, oh, you're gonna be picking this for about 8 minutes. So then I got to a point where I was like poking them, and I was like, I think I have messed up, but I'm just gonna keep going. So I spent another 2 minutes like in doubt if I had actually made any progress, and then eventually it got open. So this pin is very close to binding. It'll get shallower and shallower, if that makes any sense. All right, there we go. That one bound. This one typically binds first, so hopefully that's not a sign of issue. But yeah, so you're just going to be doing this for a while. You guys got to believe in the heart of the pins. And this tension wrench is not the most comfortable on my thumb. Ideally, I would take this little prodding tool and I would attach it to an actual handle. Nose is running. You know, I'm going to be honest, this one at the beginning, not very hot, but starting to get pretty hot. But I still think the sauce I did on the 700 was way worse. This one at least had some good flavor to it. All right, so these 2 pins here are starting to get shallow, and this one is starting to get shallow. So I think we're making some good progress. Oh, there we go, and we're picked. Second red belt lock done and in the books. Now, if I turn this any further, it's going to lock up because it's a tubular style lock. Let me zoom out, and I'm just going to show the back cam. That's what Farrell did on his. So you can see that we are picked, because I can move this cam, and then if you listen closely, now we're locked back up. And you can see with the lock position, that's the cam doesn't move from this 12 o'clock position. So let's go ahead and tilt this. I'm gonna set you right here because we're gonna gut you. Let's move this vise out of the way. And we're gonna do a little bit of shuffling. So this can go on here, right here. It's good. And then what I wanna do, so the only other person, like I said, the only other person who's gutted this lock is Farrell. And he did show the pins, but I have a microscope. So I'm not saying mine's better, but I want to give a better, if that makes sense. Gotta make room for this. I'll put that right there. And then right here, we'll put the, this is me talking to myself for post-editing, we'll put the microscope image. So let's go ahead and get this C-clip off. Right here, it's just a plate that holds the back half of the core on. And if you're very careful, no. So if you're not very careful, typically if you are careful, okay, all the springs stayed in except for one of them. I have to figure out where this pin came out of. There's a spring right here, if I can get it. Okay. So let's go ahead and get these springs out. I should have, it's almost like I should have been more prepared for this. Get this spring out, maybe. Maybe I can just do this. I think that's all of them. Awesome. So let's get these springs. So there's only 5 pins. So those are the springs. And it looks like that one came out of, let's see, hold on, that is chamber 1. So that's where this pin goes, is chamber 1. All right. So chamber 2. Gotta be careful not to lose this out of frame. 3. 4, and 5. And then now let's get the key pins out of here. So I just take this and pop them out, and they usually just fall out. There's one. And be careful not to be free and loose with these this lock. I don't want to let the leaf frame. 2. Where'd that go? I heard it. Two. There's 3. It looks like popped out while I was tapping the other one out. 3. Oh, that's what it fell out, was that ball bearing. That's right. That's all right. Normally, this is why I've stopped doing gut videos on video, is because they're not really that entertaining, to be honest with you. All right, this one has a ball bearing and a pin. All right. I should have just done that in the beginning. This pick is slightly magnetized. All right, last one, and we'll be full gutted. All right, lock body's good. Where is that? Oh, it's right there. Okay, we are full gutted. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to show the ball bearings, but I am going to show these hourglass pins because, like I said, they've not been shown. There we go, that's good. So this one, you can see it's pretty old. It has a lot of grease on it, but you can see that hourglass shape. It makes it get out of those tapers it makes it bind very heavily, and then you have this strong taper on the end here, and then you can see from use, this is the older lock. You can see here's the wear pushing it into the lock. So that's pin 1, or key pin 1. Key pin 2. And this is a cleaner one, so you can get a very good indication of the taper on there. You can see this a better image of that hourglass right there. Number 3. It's a dirtier pin, but you can see we got that multi-level hourglass and the taper on it. Number 4. You can see same situation. Most of the pins are going to look like this. My first thought when I see this one, you can see a little bit. I'd almost say this one has a heavier taper, to be honest with you. But this lock has such good tolerances in machining that they're probably all the same, but it just looks like this one is heavier. But my very first thought when I picked this lock up was these look like challenge lock pins. So here's key or driver pin 1. You can see we got the reverse taper there at the bottom with the hourglass, and this is the hourglass that binds very heavily. You have to push out of. And number 2. Number 3. These are beautiful pins, by the way. Like, I aspire to make pins like these someday. So yeah, see this one, the taper doesn't look extreme. I almost wonder if these tapers are varied or matched in some sort of way. When I picked this lock up, I couldn't find much information about them as far as like the construction history. And that is the last of the pins. All the springs are the same. I'll show one just for the sake of showing one. There's no spring variation. They're all stock springs. Here is the rear core. No modifications done to this. You can see we got that groove for that circlip. And then lastly, we got the lock body, no modifications done to this. And that, my friends, is the Izis picked and gutted on hot sauce with the microscope. And that is my second red belt lock, so I'll be submitting for my certification here shortly. So if you guys like this content, thank you so much for watching and sticking around, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye.